because we have all these universalities and prescriptive texts of how we think we should teach mental health. So it's just like, I don't know, I just never thought I'd be triggered by a freaking coping skill, so it's just like really funny. Howdy, I'm Black Child Ascending. I also go by Ebo Pretty, and my pronouns are they, them. Today we are getting into our first nitty-gritty episode of Deinstitutionalize Mental Health. This is a space to shop and compare notes on skills, coping skills particularly, from Dialectical Behavioral Therapy or DBT. Just an agenda for today's episode. I will check in. Then I'll choose a skill, talk about my history with the skill, learn and break down the skill, see the skill in media, and then give some harm reduction hacks for the skill. And yes, I did use skill about 1,700 times in that one sentence. Just a heads up, there will be a non-graphic, non-specific talk about self-harm and my journey with it, and that will be between these times, just in case you don't need that in your life. Check-in. I think the reason I have been avoiding this and I am filming it the day that it is due, it's because I did not want to do this one bit. Check-in. I usually plan my check-ins and I'm like, okay, I'll say this sounds clever, this is a good summation of like my life and my time right now, but it's also like thought-provoking, blah blah blah, shit you shouldn't even be thinking about. But I do it anyways. It's a whole OCD compulsion of mine. It is not because I want to be the therapist in the room, but I just do it, and that's just me. So I've been working on trying to check in and being more present when I check in and being more vulnerable when I check in, and that has scared me to the T. So we are feeling okay. I feel excited. I got a lot of things done to get me to this point. I was completely sick with a fever all week and kind of like whole situation from the previous week. It was my 24th birthday, and I think some things that I'm reflecting on are how I can watch so many people take up space online digitally in so many different ways, and I feel so inadequate by taking up space myself. That is my check-in for today. How are you? Have you had your needs and wants met? If not, how can you get closer to that in an accessible way? And for the new skill, take a skill pill. Ebo, will you do the honors? Hello everyone, this is called Take a Skill Pill, where we are going to pop it open, choose a skill, and then I will research and do all the necessary things. Let's see what we got. We're going with blue today. We're going with blue. Okay, I don't want this to fall. Okay. You can't read it. That's awesome. It's called the TIPP skill. It says TIPP. TIPP skill. Whew. All right. So the skill is TIPP. The tip is TIPP. TIP. I will explain my background with the skill, then give an overview of the research and hacks along the way. But these are my thoughts before I did any research on the skill since when I've learned it. I've used the TIPP skill multiple times in my life. I feel it is very evidence-based and works a lot of the time. But seldom did I practice it because it wasn't an external system skill. It was something that I had to outwardly do or want to do that made it hard to sustain. I would opt into maladaptive behaviors because they were quicker than peeling an orange. Willingness was always a huge factor for me, but what has also kept me from DBT for so long. Finding more harm reduction and more smaller ways of doing the task were hard. I found that my self-harm issues that I've dealt with for the past 12 years always theoretically were supposed to be combated with a skill. Like every therapist brought up this skill to me, and like no offense to them, now I feel like I know more insight on why I should use the skill instead of why I needed it in the first place. I used to dream about a world of self-harm, and I will admit, I thought I could find community in it. And that is not something you should find community in. So to the people in high school, like, if I ever made you feel uncomfortable by trying to romanticize this or make you feel any type of way, please know that I was going through my own shit, but it is no excuse to bring it on to you. When I brought up self-harm to my therapist, the skill increased, but there was the way of talking about it never did. I wanted to talk about the pleasure and comfort it provided me. There was always a solution, but never a steady or consistent journey of what we talked about when we talked about this problem. It was a full addiction to me. There were also times when I felt scared of my reality and I've harmed myself in Ubers or during class. And yes, that is so scary and so dangerous, but it is so nuanced. I don't believe that you should do that or that is okay, but that's where I was and I'm owning up to it now. I think what made self-harm so scary to me in my life was like I absolutely was obsessed with it, loved it, hyperfixated on it, and yet I had people in my life threatening to abuse me or neglect me if I wouldn't stop this bad habit. And I think my hopes for harm reduction is I can't tell you not to do anything, you know? Like, or don't do this, try this. That's too universal. But if I was saying this to my younger self, I guess, well, and the next part is unscripted and just a clip of when I wrote this script, what I would have said to my younger self. Hi. It seems that you've been dealing with a lot of pain. I don't know the right way out of your pain right now. I know for sure attention was the last thing on your mind despite everyone's narrative. I want to say that you don't deserve self-inflicted pain. And instead of blaming yourself for wanting this, please get curious of who told you you needed that. Just a note, I think almost of the day I stopped self-harming. And I didn't think about it, or I don't know, I don't want to acknowledge it because I'm alive and I'm pretty fucking awesome and resilient. I've been here since I was 12. I'm 24 now. Wow, I really just did that math. I'm proud of myself and I'm proud of you and I believe in you. You're not alone and I'm not alone. Amendment. After researching, there were lots of parts of the skill I didn't remember, and I definitely did learn, but it's so interesting to see like what I retained as to the two parts that I didn't really like and didn't retain over the years. Now let's learn about the TIPP skill. TIPP, or TIP, is under the distress tolerance umbrella of skills and goes under the handouts for crisis survival, starting on page 329 of the Handouts and Worksheets book. Now, I was wrestling with showing you the facts of what the book says, and then the harm reduction parts, but I'm not monetized. Hi, this is Editing Ebo. Long story short, I thought there was a rule that you couldn't make any videos past 15 minutes if you were a certain channel size. That is no longer the case, or at least for me. So I will be making long form content. I can finally post my freaking podcast, but also if it seems rushed or there's some parts that I don't really elaborate on, is because at the time I thought that I didn't have enough time to make a whole video. So enjoy this long video, my first ever long video, and please know longer and more in-depth content is coming. I just thought that I didn't have enough time to talk. Alright, so this is an amalgamation of the book, very much the book, and then me kind of amending it as we go. So take it with a grain of salt. This is an opinion, but this is how I found my way through this skill. Alright, so the T in TIP stands for tip the temperature. The full title is Tip the Temperature of Your Face with Cold Water to Calm Down Fast. That is a terrible title. It literally, it's all it says is like tip the temperature, but then it like gets really specific of like, pretty much it's saying splash cold water in your face, but then it's like, and they tell you to look, prepare the bag under 50 degrees, but then above, it could be in a Ziploc bag or it could be in the sink. Like, they're making it so freaking complicated when it just could be splash water on your face. So here's my SparkSnug version of that skill. Okay, so with tip the temperature, pretty much I would tip any part of my body in a safe way that I feel comfortable with, that will either make me feel shocked into a different body temperature, up or down. But please be safe about your limits and make it accessible. Tip would be like peeling a frozen orange and feeling the cold sensation on your hands. Tip would be putting on a heated blanket and wrapping it up. Tip could also be like going into a bathroom, filling up the sink with water, or splashing the water on your face. Not many fun examples of it, but I think it can be more accessible the more creative you are. Right, the I. The I stands for intense exercise, which we absolutely love for a mental health recovery book. So boo, just like 100% boo. I think it's funny that Marsha Linehan has a whole asterisk dedicated to how cold water can be dangerous for people even with eating disorders and chronic illnesses, but not a single goddamn word about that when talking about intense exercise, which can be extremely harmful. So with anything, this is how I would talk about it. If you have a lot of energy, you can expel it by doing something intense, which is subjective. So I would say it may be a larger movement that you're not naturally doing every single day, and a full, like with your whole body type of movement for a short while to get that energy out. So go by like feeling, but not measurement of exercise time or weight. So like, do I feel like I expended some energy with that? Yeah. If you have no energy, I'm going to say quick movement or any type of movement is extremely difficult. If there's a way that you can raise your temperature quickly, even if it's shaking your shoulders, it's not going to raise it much, but it's still giving me that sensorial shock. And I mean, people can argue with me if that's the goal of the skill or not, but I think it's the most successful way to work on it. Okay, P stands for paced breathing and paired muscle relaxation, and I'll just continue. Okay, so paced breathing is slowing down your breathing and breathing out more slowly than you breathe in. While this might sound weird, breathing intentionally is a very triggering to many people and can put you back in your body in an unpleasant way. For me as well. And just like closing your eyes when you don't want to at a yoga class can re-traumatize you. So I was traumatized by this skill's implementation in my life. I was forced to do it a lot in like eating disorder residentials where it's like an inpatient stay, and the skill made me feel worse every time, and I expressed so, but it just didn't help. So if it doesn't serve you, don't do this until you're ready. Any type of muscle movement or breathing that doesn't make you feel comfortable. This is an example of paced breathing. And for all you like breathing nerds out there, I literally know, I've taken voice classes, I know you exist. This is from someone who finds it extremely uncomfortable, so get curious about what you're trying to correct. And also, I'm extremely sick. We are going to get relaxed. I'm going to breathe slowly. I'm making it more dramatic than it needs to be. Now I'm going to breathe in for 4. And now I know all y'all honeys want to hold it, but I don't like holding my breath because of trauma. So I'm going to breathe in for 4, and we're just going to do an exercise, and we're going to try and exhale at 6. So let's do it. We're going in. That took the goddamn wind out of me, but it really helped. I know you can do it for a long time. Doesn't have to be on that pacing. I'm literally so slow with counting. That's why I was tapping my foot to keep up, and I couldn't do it while being on camera and like thinking about the video, counting and breathing. It's hard. So there's also videos of paced breathing, but I don't know, that's just a simple way. Remember, slow out longer than in. Paired muscle relaxation in its simplest form is creating and releasing tension into your body. Here's a little side note. I was pretty much forced to do this skill every day in treatment, and it did not help. But this is an example of what it is, and then I'll explain kind of my situation with this. All right, so pretend everything that I'm doing with my body is what my hand is doing. So I'm gonna work on my head first. You usually go in body groups, and you usually do kind of like a body scan. Body scans can be triggering, do it at your own risk. Okay, say if I'm crunching my whole face together and I don't have much time. I would go, not holding my breath, just squeezing really hard. And then when you feel like you can't squeeze anymore, release your face. Now you would do that for every single part of your body as a specific or as large as you need to make it. That's as far as I'll go because I really don't like this skill, for me personally. Now, if you are not in a safe space with your body, you shouldn't have to do this skill. Here's my story. I was in an exposure therapy treatment, and my therapist would literally bully us and be like, you should squeeze harder. If I was in your position to work on my trauma, I would squeeze harder. And that's like very weird when we were literally inpatient involuntarily in treatment for eating disorders, but that was also some of the best treatment I've received. So take that with a grain of salt of, is it the system or is it the therapist? Because that was the best thing I've ever seen. So I found a hack also that like I may not say later, but I just want to make sure I get it clear. If you do not want to do your full body, do parts of your body that are comfortable to you. I remember I had to do, they tried to make me do a lot of paired muscle relaxation to calm me down while I was eating. And that, not fun for this or my stomach. It's not cute to do the paired muscle relaxation while I do that. So for me, something that was really helpful was doing my toes. And so I would do squeeze one toe, release, squeeze the other toe, release, squeeze this toe, release. And I would just do that and I'd get through the meal. That was a effective way of doing it. That's not like they would say to do it, but it was helpful for me. Okay, so if you have any trauma or dysphoria around an area, you don't have to do it. That's my, there's your permission. So this was the first page that kind of showed everything in the tip, and I only gave what you needed. And let's get curious about the handout. 330, the cold water. It was like kind of like a half nice, half problematic words. So I don't really care about this page. And like they say words like, okay, they say words like this. This strategy works best when you are sitting quietly. Activity and distraction may make it less effective. I don't know, for me, just like reading between the lines and like thinking that this like stuff is gonna save me, like I got so particular with the words, and it's just like maybe not everyone. People are like, oh, I'll take that, or maybe I won't take that. But for me, it wasn't made clear to me that I could just do whatever I want with this skill, which it still hasn't been until I told myself to do so. Also, there's literally no page on intense exercise or pace breathing. They were just like, yeah, do some vigorous ass exercise, but we're not gonna show you how or anything. Now, that might sound fine because it sounds self-explanatory, which it isn't, but let's get back to the bestie, paired muscle relaxation, or PMR, and I'll show you how much they went into detail about this. So we got a full ass page of every single step of how to go through your body group, and that's me and my terrible annotations of it, but how to go through each body group. They even made it into a diagram, and they said this is the effective thinking style of how to get here. Making it more specific and hyper-specific makes it inaccessible. Like for instance, okay, on page 331, it says, get your body in a comfortable position which you can relax. Loosen tight clothing. Lie or sit down with all body parts uncrossed or no body parts supporting any others. I'm getting nitpicky, but for me, it was a real big issue. For me, I held a lot of tension in my body. Like I would sit with my legs crossed, or I would cross my arms. It was a safe and sustainable way that wasn't hurting anyone else, that helped me feel more secure in my recovery and safe in the room. Because we have all these universalities and prescriptive texts of how we think we should teach mental health. So it's just like, I don't know, I just never thought I'd be triggered by a freaking coping skill, so it's just like really funny. The only reason I'm going so in depth or like so hard on this is to show that like even the best treatment in the world can be so complicated. To say it in a funny way, I don't appreciate 20,000 words in order to tell me how to calm down fast. I know that there's like a component, and we will talk about it, of DBT that's called build mastery, but I think the like constant like do the drilling of skills, like I do remember that term in treatment of drilling skills. Like you have to drill them into your head and like repeat. You're gonna keep practicing and you're gonna keep practicing, and that's what they want you to do. They want you to build up a tolerance to the skill so that it becomes second nature to you when you do the skill, but that is not how it always works. I don't want to get too deep, but you have to remember that self-help is taught by someone. It is an amalgamation of research and studies, etc., but it is people's ideology passing through time. We had Freud, we had Jung, now we have Marsha Linehan. Like, we are evolving. We also had that guy who wrote The Body Keeps the Score, that I'm literally not gonna memorize his name because I don't want to. But like we have so much things about that. And it's just us correcting and modifying and moving on and evolving, and that's what history is. But I find it interesting how we promote DBT as this like all one-stop solution when, I don't know, it's just not accessible sometimes. That's the tea that I've always been saying, so it's not really tea. Enough of this book. Okay, so now this is what comes up when I Google search. This group I think is funny. I'm not gonna call you out because like y'all can have whole ass jobs, but like it's so funny that they really did paraphrase that book like I did when I was in middle school. They pretty much like, they put like a little bit of flavor on it, like some salt and pepper, but it's the exact same words. And like, I don't know how you're supposed to distill like skill information. That's why I'm doing it in this format, but like what's like the copyrights with that and stuff. But like it gave no new information for the first search that I found on the website, like online. And they also did like the same phrase. They even like put in bold the same phrase that Marsha Linehan put in bold, but then changed it by saying, so instead of it being your dive response, which pretty much is just like your body regulating, like as if you were diving into cold water, right? That's the whole splash on your face. They call it, this website calls it the mammalian, I don't even know what that word is, mammalian, like you're a mammal diving reflex. Do you see how twisted? It's like a game of like telephone. Like the more you get further from the source, the crazier it can be. And like, even though I'm even disrupting and deconstructing the source, like am I a credible source, etc. Another website, they're called the Manhattan Center for Cognitive Behavioral Therapy. They get really specific about temperature, like the book, which I really don't appreciate. And then they give one harm reduction option, which I guess is a win. And then they do a huge red flag for exercise. They talk about how to calculate your target heart rate, which is just like, did you miss the point? I don't know. I also like understand these are people trying to help people, so like I can only assume their intentions. Okay, so one of them gave like a fucking copy of just like the scan of the skill, and that's what I love, but I won't shut that one out. This one's good. So this one's from The Mighty, and it's about Lady Gaga. Okay, so I thought this article was cool. I mean, shout out writer, but I think it has some of like the language, some language that like not everybody's ready to read when it comes to like trigger warnings. But it does take claims about DBT being like made for BPD and self-harm, which is just not the whole story. And like, I don't know, I even made the same mistake until someone told me 2 hours before filming literally the first episode of this series. I thought the same thing about BPD and DBT. And then the writer goes on to state Gaga's history with DBT, and it was just like interesting because like it was someone talking about Gaga's like interviews about it instead of like Gaga themselves. So I was a little confused about that, but I just understand the internet now. Alright, so if you like Gaga, it's a good article. It uses some not so trigger warned words, which is not a bad thing. It just needs to be let known. And she does talk about other celebrities and goes into how DBT like is supposed to work and blah blah blah. And I mean, it's kind of like reading the book or doing what I'm doing, but if you want that like parasocial lens of like, oh, my celebrity does this too. I will say she did bring up Pete Davidson. It's so hard and like lame, but once you actually do it and go through the DBT skills book, you're like, I'm gonna use this skill, or like hold ice, or take a cold shower, or listen to my favorite song really loud. And it sounds fucking lame and annoying, but when you do it, it actually kind of works. And I think I will link this article because I think it deserves to be clicked on, not cited, but I think like this is what it's about. Like he just gave 3 different ways to do it or 2 different ways than I've said. So it's just like, how do we combine resources is what I always wanted to make with this channel. It's like, how can we work on the same goal together? For videos about TIPP, this is one. I love this animation and trust the video. This talks about the T in TIPP, but not the I or P, so I love. And I'm gonna mention the video down there. I also saw this hack on TikTok that was to eat fruit or sweet candy from like a gas station or something you have stored to shock the system when you are dissociating. I've dissociated a lot. Sometimes I've dissociated while driving. It's not been a safe time for me. So it's just, it helps you shock, get back into your system so you can finish your ride, get home safely. I also think this hack like helps me get more curious about how senses relate to each other, more than what is associated with touch. The main hack of this video is be accessible to yourself. I didn't wrap it into a nice bowl because I do have issues with this skill and how it's been taught. T, use anything that is safe to change your internal temperature. I, intense, larger than life movements to physically feel different or not. Paced breathing, slow it down and exhale slower than you inhale. Paired muscle relaxation. If you feel comfortable, create and release tension throughout your body in small groups at a time and feel your body relax by something in your control. This skill needs to be about agency. Do what you can to make yourself feel comfortable. These are about you. The past is my experience, but the future is yours. I've chosen this form of service to my community. Please show up for yourself, not just for me. You are capable, you are believed. I believe in you. With love, Black Child Ascending. Wow, my lighting has gotten so much better.